Are you tired of small talk? Me too. How do we channel spirit messages? What can angels and demons teach us? What's quantum leaping? How do we shift timelines? Who are the star seeds among us? Are dragons real? Big Souls brings big ideas down to earth. Let's plant some abundant seeds into the garden of. Welcome to Big Souls, Big Ideas, the podcast where we replace small talk with big talk. And today we're going to be talking about something known as somatic healing and somatic movement. And it sounds really exciting and you might be familiar with it. I am personally not, and I decided not to research it so that I can have my guest, somatic facilitator and emotional embodiment coach, Erica Horowitz, guide us through it. And she is also known to hold a sacred space for connecting with our emotions, with deeper meaning in life. So this will be the perfect opportunity for her to introduce us into somatic healing. Welcome, Erica.
Thank you so much, Stella. It's such an honor to be here today.
It's fantastic to have you here, and I am excited to learn about somatic healing. But before I do, I wanted to ask you, do you remember the moment when this type of healing entered your life? Was there a pivotal moment? Did something happen where you're like, I need to research, or I need to embrace this, I need to dive deep into this?
Yeah, so I became a yoga teacher as a starting point to really understand the mind-body connection. That was, for me, I was so in the mind for everything I was doing. And I'm like, wow, I can read another book. I can listen to another podcast. I can take another course. But when I channeled that outer noise inside of myself and I could really be with my body, be with my breath, I'm like, ooh, there's something to unlock here. There's something more here. And from my yoga practice, there was a rigidity in the structures and the shapes of movement from yoga. And while it's such a beautiful practice of really, if you can breathe, you could do yoga as the simple terms in space. But for me, I always was connected to dance. And so dance really unlocked that deeper meaning of really being in the body and seeing how we can move and heal without words through the expression of our bodies.
I love this. I used to dance quite a lot when I was a teenager. I was part of the school. I was choreographing as well. I was taking that
Mm.
leadership role within the dancing. And then I was a cheerleader for many years. And then I discovered that love for writing. And I thought, this is me choreographing on the paper. But there was this connection when it comes to dance where you're connecting to energy that is both yours and not yours. It's like you're tapping into the energy of the universe. And I felt that many times when I was doing yoga. With
Mm.
yoga, you are allowing yourself to move the energy around you as well, move the energy within you. And I don't think we can quite get that in the gym. I think in the gym, we're doing something amazing with our bodies. We're increasing our health and vitality, but I don't think the energy element is quite there. And you mentioned something that kind of made me realize that maybe yoga was started from the male perspective, which is why it sometimes feel quite restrictive because women are the ones to move the energy. Have you encountered that,
Yeah,
that between the
I
masculine
think,
and
yeah, I think that's a really interesting kind of like thought. And yeah, there was a lot of male kind of founding parts of yoga. But to me, I think as long as you're intentional with your breath and movement collectively, you can be in a healing place. You could be taking a walk outside and really channeling in that mind body connection. So you could be at the gym lifting weights and in your own spiritual practice and zone. So it really is about where you are intentionally and present to yourself and your body. For me, the freedom of dance, the freedom of movement and expression without like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in these certain poses and expressions, that to me was really opening and tapping into the creative essence of my body's language without having a conversation mentally, but allowing my body to be speaking to me in a different capacity.
Mm. You just mentioned something really powerful that
Mm.
you can make your exercise be a spiritual practice, whatever that exercise is, and wherever you are. And it doesn't even have to be exercise, it could just be movement because it's your intention, it's how you're choosing to connect with your body and with the environment. And I think maybe this is the gift where we have great teachers. They're guiding us onto that better connection with ourselves, but also that sacred space, as you're doing, where you can tap into a different part of you. When I was putting together the podcast episode and choosing the words, heal the body came through as the word. And there's a
Mm.
famous book, Heal the Body, Heal Your Soul, by Louise Hay. And she talks a lot about the emotional root of every single disease and illness that we experience. And I feel like somatic healing is raising that conversation once again into the public spaces, where we're honoring that our emotions are more than just noise. They're trying to teach us, they're trying to guide us. But for anyone that's just discovering somatic healing, what would you say it is? Is it the spiritual side? Is it the emotional side, the mental, or is it everything?
Yeah, such a big question, right? And yet, to me, it's very simple. So I like to add, and if I could add a little carrot and add a word in between, it would be somatic activated healing. And so the word activated is what I studied, somatic activated healing, because we have to activate that part of ourselves. It's a co creation with our body outside of the mind, but really tapping into the relationship between breath, body, movement, and stillness. So, what I would say somatic healing is, it's not thinking and looping through the stories, the mindset, all of the talk therapy type aspects. It's allowing tension, ease, openness, friction to be your guide, to be your teacher. And I always like to tell the people who I practice with is, I'm not a healer. I can't heal you, but what I can do is help you see, create curiosity, and create space for you to tap into your own innate wisdom, your own body's expression. I can't feel your tension. I can't feel your pain, but you can feel that unique language that is your own. So you can begin to learn how your body communicates with you. And that's really what somatic healing is. It's just learning the relationship and language of the body, just like you would in any other language.
So you mentioned breath work is involved when it comes to somatic healing. What's somatic healing compared to breath work? Where's the middle ground between it, and how are they different?
Yeah, I would say they're good friends. If I were to say, like,
Mhm.
somatic healing and breathwork are pals. So the practice that I really create and cultivate, it's a combination. I like to say it's a recipe of things. So breathwork is just one component of this special sauce recipe. So I create an experience where we breathe, we create intention around our breath, and then we have dynamic movement and meditation. Similar to Qigong, there's an expression of movement language to allow that energy and that motion to come up and come out without sifting through the stories, the looping, the questioning. So that's really, I think, the difference between the two is there's a movement of the body involved. And for me, dancing and free expression and intuitive movement is such a powerful part of the somatic activated healing method, as well as really connecting to affirmations and really creating ways that you're speaking this new mindset and releasing that energetic baggage that's stuck in the body without having to like go back through your entire history of your experience.
Is there an aspect of somatic healing, or rather, how much of it is happening inside of us? So there's definitely that inner work that is happening, but are there classes where somatic healing is also you actively saying things out loud or being interactive with the teacher or with other people participating in the class?
Yeah, so that's such a great question. So the lineage that I studied is called somatic activated healing. And really it is this beautiful co-creation of a container of support where we do have a dialogue between mantras. We do breathe and audibly exhale together. We have space where we can feel the energy of the room releasing. So there is really this beautiful aspect of co-regulation in community. I know you really believe in this too. We're not meant to heal alone. We are really here to regulate in community and spaces. I always think about this example of a baby. When they're born, they need someone to feed them, to hold them, to nurture them. And so we forget that as we age, as we grow up, as we go out into the world. So really, this is a reclamation of us creating space to regulate within community and find tools for us to regulate and hold that space for others. So we really do create that beautiful partnership with people, friendship, relationship. So we all are on this path together.
I'm being brought back to the yoga classes and the yoga studios where you show up for the class and it's almost like you're asked to become invisible. So you
Mm,
blend in with the energy, you kind of let go of your worries, you calm your mind, but your individuality gets removed. You're literally a nobody in that class because you're part of the larger whole. And so in that space, you're allowing yourself to just exist, to let go of the burdens, but you kind of disappear into it. So I wouldn't say the community knows who you are unless you stay after class or unless something happens and you fall on your head. That happened to me, by the way. I'm not gonna relive it, but I was being used as the poster child in front and I was doing this complicated pose and it was like landed on my forehead and I was like, okay, never doing that again. But on the other end of the spectrum, we have dancing, and you also disappear into the group, especially when you've synchronized the moves, you're part of a larger whole, you're co creating something beautiful, but your identity gets lost. And I feel like somatic classes, somatic healing, the way that you're talking about it, it's allowing for our authenticity to show up as we're gathering together to co create and release and activate and breathe through the class together, which is beautiful to see because I don't think there are many classes, many activities that do that. That
mhm.
community aspect of the healing is important. And I understand that some of the inner healing can only be done in isolation, but if we think about that baby and we think about our spiritual awakening, it resembles the same journey. You're reborn, you're questioning everything, you have to relearn how to be human, you have to relearn what are the social norms and this new way of existing. And oftentimes you find yourself alone. And even when you go to
Mm.
these spaces, these yoga classes, and even the dancing in the gym, there isn't necessarily that space where people are curious to know your story. So
Yeah, I think that's really powerful, Stella. And I think like finding community of like minded individuals and places and spaces where you are seen, valued, heard, and accepted for who you are. And there's this invitation to fully express without turning to the right or turning to the left and seeing what they're doing on their mat and their experience. So much of what I share when I'm working with individuals as well as groups and organizations is this concept of you are in your own healing journey, you are in your own experience, and yet when you are outside of yourself and looking, you see other people in their own humanness too, in their own expression, in their own experience. And that's what humanity I think is so needed in more of these spaces where we all are doing something in our own unique expression and yet still doing it in our own unique way.
I think what's turned me off some of these shared spaces, especially as I was going on the more intense healing path when all of these emotions were coming to the surface, was how performative it felt.
Mm.
And it didn't just feel performative, it was performative. People go to these classes to this day, they continue to sign up for these classes thinking if I sign up for 5 of these classes, if I show up, if I take that selfie as proof that I've shown up, then something in me is going to be transformed. Other people are doing it, I'm going to do it too. And they show up and then they perform it, they look at how the others are showing up, they replicate the exact same movement, but that inner transformation hasn't happened. And it's not as easy as just showing up and doing it. It's about more than just the intention, it's about continuously showing up and being open to what comes through, because some of the
Mhm.
things that might come through might not be, rainbow and sunshine. You might have to face some of the shadows. So, in that regard, I'm curious to hear more about how can we safely practice somatic healing and how can we practice it in a way that it isn't just performative but it actually allows us to get to the heart of who we are so that we can share that self with others and not just show up and think, oh, I still feel lonely or nobody still understands me, because you haven't gotten to who you are.
Yeah, it's such a big question and a supportive question for all of us. We all have shadows. We all have triggers. We all have trauma that's been in our existence. If you don't think you have trauma, surprise you have. It can be something as small as not getting the Barbie dream house you wanted, or something more intense or extreme. So our work is to allow ourselves to be open, to be curious, to see all kinds. I'm so glad you brought up the shadows, because that is when you know you're doing the inner work, is when you are feeling those heavier, denser, more textured sensations in the body. So how do we practice somatic healing? Is becoming aware of sensation, of felt sense, of what is going on within the physical capacity of my body. That is the practice start of that. So in these recipes that I work with clients and groups to create, it's all about this safe container of exploring different emotional aspects of self. And the way we do that is becoming aware of our body by moving through the energy, by repetition of movement. I learned a movement language from shame to enlightenment. And so that language is really beautiful to help release some of that heaviness within the body. And as we move through that repetition of movement, we're opening ourselves really to this portal of ecstatic dance. And somatic healing really is allowing the fullness and rawest expression of the body to be moved, to be felt with our breath. If we're holding our breath, we're not healing. Breath is such a vital part of all of us. And the beautiful thing I think about adding that is it's voluntary and involuntary. And it's something that we can actively participate in the depth, and we also, it's happening with us and for us as well in the healing.
I've been seeing this videos online where therapists are sharing stories of, some of their clients that are just starting therapy, and it's a different, modality of healing, but they often ask them, well, how are you feeling? They're replicating the stories. Obviously, they're not sharing actual stories or actual people, but they're asking them, where are you feeling that? How does that feel in your body? What part of the body? Can you point to it? And they're like, no, I don't know. Like, I'm not used to recognizing where emotions feel in my body. And why is that important? And I feel like somatic healing is bringing up to the surface this idea, this concept that we're not actually living in the bodies. Yes, we're operating in them every single day, but we're numb. And I think that starts with the heart, obviously, but how long does that journey take to actually embody our souls, embody our consciousness fully, and not suppress and repress and reject some of the heavier emotions?
Yeah, I think that's such an important part of this experience of being a human, especially in the modern day age of where we are today. We are so in the mind. We are deeply over intellectualized, overstimulated, to the point that our heart is numb because we are so in our mind. And so really what this work is, it's a reclamation of letting the mind sit and stay. I got you. I'm here, and I focus on something outside of the mind, whether that's an inhale and an exhale, a starting point slowly to remove the concentration from the chatter, or, they refer to it as the monkey mind, and allowing yourself to be more curious and noticing the sensations and textures of the body is really the path and the starting point to become aware of, like, what a yes in your body feels like, what a no in your body feels like, what that gut feeling really feels like, what intuition really feels like, not from that hit in the mind, because that's always the default, is the mind. And the mind is here with a good purpose. Like, we're not trying to get rid of the mind. That's not the point of any of this at all. But it's how do we work in relation to the mind? How do we work in community, in our body, in our breath, in our mind, rather than it being a fight against each other?
Oh, we've seen that, and we've seen it in the movies. They even glamorize that, where the person is in love with someone, but the mind is like, no, no, no. People are not going to approve of that. What are people going to say? What if she or he rejects me? And we have that battle of the mind between the heart, visualized every single day, normalized even. So society has normalized the dysfunction to the point where it romanticizes it. And if we look into the older movies in the past few decades, we've made some progress, I would say. We've made some progress. Some of the stories that we're now telling are a little bit more realistic and a little bit kinder, I suppose, to our differences as well, because we don't experience the world in the same way. We don't experience love and relationships in the same way. This brings up the discussion about neurotypicals versus neurodivergent people. So we have different thinking operational systems as well. I'm curious though, have you met people that are so deep in their heart, in their emotions, that keeps them disconnected from their bodies? Because
Mm.
the empaths, in a way.
That's such an interesting like take, because normally it's the opposite, right? Of like, you're so in the mind that you can't connect to your heart at all. So I think the beauty of when you're in your heart, if you're so in your heart, it maybe can, as you said, sort of take you out of really that connection. So I think, yeah, there definitely are people that are not in balance in kind of both sides of the spectrum. And so that's what our work is every day. It's really this beginner's mind, this beginner's body of coming back home to self all the time. You could be in this work for 10, 15, 20 years and have something that triggers you and you takes you completely out of this entire practice of where you've been. So we're all really on this journey of continually coming back home to self in body, mind, and heart.
Before I divert our conversations towards the benefits, I'm curious, is there a wrong way to do somatic healing? Or is there something that we shouldn't do as we're exploring somatic healing and, trying to get better at it? Maybe people are looking for shortcuts, or people are, continuing that performative cycle in a different way within that space.
Yeah, you already hit the nail on the head earlier, the performative part. Like, if you are really doing this for looks outside, for how it looks visually, and you're not just letting your hips move and circle because it feels really good to release that tension. If you're performing because you think that person next to you is really excited by the way your body is moving, then that's you out of yourself and your inner world and focusing on someone else. So at any point in your somatic journey where you're taking your body out of the equation for the approval or validation of something external, that's really when I would say you're not doing it right. But if you're breathing and you're moving and you're really being intentional with connecting inward, then you're taking this step by step in the way that feels really good to meet yourself where you're at. And every moment is different.
There is I think social media has pushed us to seek for that validation a lot more than previous generations, but it has also increased the fear of judgment. Because
Mm-hmm.
as you were talking, I'm visualizing myself. And some days I'm so happy. I just want to start running and dancing out in public, but that's not normalized. And I'm not saying that should be normalized. I'm just saying that if one person was so happy that they wanted to dance outside, the whole city is going to look at them like they're a fool, instead of saying, oh, that's a source of happiness. This person is a source of happiness. The way the children are jumping around and dancing, and nobody's judging them for that because they're children. So I don't know exactly when we decided that adults cannot dance and jump and express their emotions, but it has been systematically taught that we should be restrictive with our bodies. And I'm not even talking about consent here, I'm just talking about our expression of our emotions, because that conversation around consent can, illuminate some problem areas where people are overly expressive when it comes to expressing themselves in all the wrong ways. But
Mm.
why are we not allowed to share our joy? Why have we been taught to minimize and downsize our joy and hide it? Why have we been judged for our joy?
I mean, it's a capitalistic way of us keeping us small, of keeping us contained, of keeping us in this box little check of where we need to be fitting in. So I say to you and to every other person that listens to this, break the mold. Get excited, find the joy. I saw these flowers on my walk this morning and I was so excited they're finally in bloom that I like literally did a happy dance and I smelled these flowers and I didn't care. I just let myself be. I think so much of the somatic work is giving yourself that really freedom to be the fullest and most beautiful raw version of yourself. And if other people are judging or not accepting that version of yourself, that has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. And so don't hold yourself back because of other people's opinions, views, eyes, and let yourself really be in your own version of what joy looks like, because that's how we take the power back. That's how we have our birthright and our freedom really activated within self. And it's really that way that we're showing ourselves. Like we are proving, validating to ourselves that we are showing up as the fullest, most beautiful version of ourselves.
The irony is, we're actually teaching children to subdue their emotions and sit within these classrooms that are sometimes even like just black and white. Just the walls are white and the desks are black and that's it. And then they're conditioned to just fit all of their emotions into that little box where they're allowed to sit in. And then we move that to the workplace. And then it's the Stockholm syndrome. Like you're already attached to that system that created, that became your abuser in a way, the abuser of your soul. But then you're paying hundreds to see your favorite performers on stage where they are allowing themselves that fullest expression. And it's almost like society approves of 100 people that are allowed to fully express themselves, and everybody else should sit and observe and watch. There's that invisible division, but it's quite obvious when you look at the stages and how many people are actually in the audience and who's performing and how many people are performing. Obviously, it's a different discussion, but
Yeah.
I thought, having a performative world, in a world where we pay for the performers while simultaneously say to the people, calm down, relax, tone it down. It just speaks of maybe the way that the system was designed on purpose.
Oh, definitely. There's no doubt about that. That is clear as day. But I would say there are counterculture. There is so many spaces and places where there is that open expression, like music festivals as an example. There are places where it's so accepted and encouraged to be that fullest, boldest, brightest version of yourself, to dress in costume, to wear that big makeup, to give other people a hug. Like there are these places where you can show up, shine bright, and be your fullest and most beautiful expression. And yet that's our personal accountability and responsibility to look and I mean, I wish it was more regularly accepted, right? Like you walk out the door and you see a concert and there's people dancing in the street. Like, yes, one day in the world, that's my hope, is we'll be in that place. But if we're not, and that's what we're seeking, that's where podcasts like these, that's where people coming and sharing their vision with the world and finding others with like-minded expression is where really our healing begins and continues. It's beautiful to see what can be co-created when you find other people that want to express, whether that's just dancing in your basement, you put on some lights and you put on some music and you have a good time. Some of my friends, we do that, or have like a little wig night where we'll just party and have a good time with different wigs for expression, right? So I think it really is about opening the door, inviting curiosity, and seeing where your friends, you never know what that would look like if you don't make the ask.
Putting some lights in your basement and dancing, that's also a good example of, and a good point to highlight, that this healing journey, whether you're investing into somatic healing or breath work or even the gym, it doesn't have to be expensive. And when you remove the performative element, when you remove you posting on social media about how you showed up to that class or that latest outfit that you wore, if you remove the outside gaze and you focus on you looking within, you realize that you don't need the addictive substances to have fun. You don't need to sacrifice your boundaries. You don't need to sacrifice your emotions, because there are certain spaces that make us feel uncomfortable, but we've been taught to fit in. We've been taught to shut down that intuition that is telling us these are not your people. This is not the space, because deep down, whether the people cannot see you or they will not accept you for who you are, but you also deep down, you always know who you are. And when you repress or suppress that expression, it turns into depression and all kinds of states of being that take even longer to heal, depending on how long you've been masking and running away from yourself and shushing down the voice of your own intuition. And so, no, go on, Erica.
I was just going to add, like, to what you said. I think it's so important in knowing those whispers, right? Those whispers of self, of that repression, suppression. It's all a teacher. It's all here as a messenger and a guide for you to know, like, what is stuck within my body, what's stuck within my thinking, what's stuck that I have the healing powers within myself to move that feeling, that tension, that anxiety. So I don't want anyone to ever feel like they have to go pay hundreds and thousands of dollars to a guru or to wear the most perfect outfit. We all have the ability, and there's so much beautiful information all across the world now on the internet. I mean, I think it's really fabulous to know that you can put on a song and shake out and shake off that
Mhm.
top
Yeah.
level anxiety and stress. So I just want to really reiterate the fact that, like, it's not gate kept anymore. It's available and accessible to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, you can exercise somatic exercises and any other types of movements at home also. You don't have to spend the money for big classes, but also even if you don't have the latest branded outfit, that shouldn't matter. Even if you pay the money and you go up and you show up, remove that comparison because it starts from within. If other people want to judge you, let them. That's their lesson to overcome. Have you learned your lesson to accept yourself just as you are with the clothes that you come with? Clothes that otherwise might make you happy. Maybe, maybe that's the conversation. What are the clothes that make me happy? Some people like clothes that are more fitted because, then that allows them to feel more of their body. I don't know. Other people like loose clothes because that allows more movement. So find
Yeah.
what makes you happy, you without the external gaze, the external approval.
What helps your
And yeah,
expression? Like, I think it's all about your expression, right? Like, if you are really tapping into more of your feminine energy and wearing a skirt that you can see that fluidity and that movement, or if you're someone that like loves a good workout pants so you can feel like secure and held in. I think if clothes are something that's a barrier to you, that's definitely a conversation to have within yourself. Why am I allowing this physicality to restrict me from like really expressing myself? Which clothes are also a beautiful expression of self, which can be something that really helps us in our process to feel good in the skin we're in and what we're wearing on top of that skin.
absolutely. Your style, the choices as to how you dress, that showcases your authenticity in a world that kind of looks the same. So when you bring your authentic self, people might look at you with curiosity or shock or, just, I don't like that. But that's okay because that's bringing you closer to the people that will appreciate you and all of your colors and all of the fullest expression of your authentic self. And one more point that I would like to make as we're talking about this is that your body image starts with you, not
Mm.
what society told you. But also that part about needing to pay a lot of money just to have someone to listen to you, finding that help that can meet you. It's not about the most expensive service. It's about a person that can actually see you, a person that can actually support you. And when we live in a society, in a community where people are focused on holding space for one another, that's when we get to see that ripple effect. Not when we have five gurus and everybody's queuing to meet those five gurus. Because actually, we can all tap into that knowledge. We can all tap into that. And sometimes people don't even need the lecture, they don't even need some greater understanding. They just need someone to hold a little bit of space for them and make them feel like you're not going crazy. You're just experiencing a different version or you're having a different reaction to the same world. um,
Yeah, someone that sees you. I think like I'm so glad you brought that up. I think there's something so important about finding a facilitator, a guide, a teacher in any capacity. If you're looking for self-growth, it can be a challenge to do on your own. There's no doubt there are, as I said, tons of resources online for somatic exercise. But what I love to do is really create that sacred container where you can be so open with all the expression of yourself, where it's so seen, so heard, no judgment, so that you do feel that you can be the best version of you with someone that's holding you in a way that feels so safe. There's so much about creating that inner safety within self and with someone else that's here to guide you and support you on that path and the journey. And to me, that's what's really helped me is the community of others, of other teachers, of other friends, where I can really show the fullest version of me, all my parts, in a way that's mirrored back to me in such a beautiful expression.
You mentioned the best version of yourself, which I think it's important because when we discover that we've been suppressing our joy, sometimes the people around us don't know how to hold space for our joy. They're like, nah, life's not that happy. Like, life's not that joyful. Shush it. Like, we still have our problems. They're very attached to their problems and to that way of living. So having people that are allow you to thrive, to grow, to bloom and celebrate that growth, that's important. But also having those safe spaces where you can be your worst self, the self that's not strong, the self
Mhm.
that has been the support system for so many others that can finally not fall apart per se, but finally feel out of hope for a moment because
I
you
think
need somebody else to allow for that flow to pass through.
that's the best version of yourself. To me, what you just described, it is when you can have that fullest of all expressions. All emotions are welcome. All feelings are seen here. All experiences of self are celebrated, from the lowest of shame and guilt and sadness and anger to ecstatic, happy, joy, love, and someone that can hold you and see you in all of it. I think something really interesting you brought up too is, if you're in that place where you're finding that best version of yourself and the people that know you are like, who is this person? Like, she is a whole different version and we don't know who that is. Like, we don't want to be a part of that. That is also not about you too. It's really important to know that that can be a challenging friction point of people's growth path and journey when your people that have been your people for so long are really questioning or doubting or judging your experience. So knowing that you can continue to evolve friendship, you can continue to evolve and find other people that celebrate these new wins and these new highs and new lows, because that's the part of our healing journey. It's not linear. And we grow at different rates with people. And I think that's really important to know too.
Hmm. Somatic healing, as we're talking about, it kind of sounds like unblocking the flow of simply being yourself.
Mm,
And through that movement, you're it's like there is a river bank, but it was filled with so many stones and branches, and you remove them, the obstacles, so that you can keep flowing. No one's saying that you clear the river and the branches and the stones aren't there, but they're not blocking you anymore from flowing. And that flow, we're going to experience storms. This is a playing field where we're all interconnected, just like nature is always interconnected with us and, with each other, with the different expressions. We've brought up some really positives about somatic healing. We've also brought up some challenges. I want to focus on the benefits for people that are wondering, or people that have realized that their life is a little bit still, but not in the stillness that Buddhists are living their lives, rather still as in, I feel like I've been stuck in this place of my life and there is no moving out of it. So I need to move. I need to do something about it. And somatic activated healing kind of promises or makes that promise that you will be moving. And through the act and expression of movement, your life will also be moving. So, what are some benefits that we should highlight for our listeners, anyone that's tuning into the conversation?
yeah, great question. I think first and foremost, that metaphor that you just described was such a powerful way of seeing the benefits through that flowing channel, right? So when we think about ourselves, that flowing channel is our nervous system regulation. Life is going to continue to happen. There is going to be stress. There is going to be anxiety. There is going to be sadness. The full range of emotion is not going away from this process. Sorry to burst anyone's bubble. It's still a part of the gig. But what's a benefit of this work is the fact that we can have tools to regulate ourselves in real time. So when we do have that moment where there is that friction point, that anxiety, we can calm ourselves quicker. We can ground ourselves quicker. We don't have to ruminate on that feeling all day. Maybe you used to sit in something for 2 weeks and instead it's 3 hours, or instead it's 5 minutes. So really this work is helping us really recultivate our nervous system regulation, moving out of that sympathetic, which is more of that stressful fight, flight, freeze feeling, into more of the parasympathetic, our rest and digest. So much of our emotions, when we don't process them in real time, live in our myofascia. They live within the tissues. They say the issues is within the tissues. So really what the benefits are is when we can move and process that emotion in real time, we're not holding on to that tension within our bodies. We're allowing it to release so that more, as that beautiful metaphor, flows more fluidly and more clearly, more regularly. And so if you've lived 30, 40, 60 years of not regulating your emotions in real time, there's some baggage, there's some stuckness within the body that we are here to unpack. And once we move through some of that historical information, that tension, that uncomfortableness, we create, the beauty of this is we can reclamation of our ability to move through things faster, to heal quicker, to connect to our vagus nerve, which really helps us rest, digest, take care of ourselves more regularly.
What would be some signs that we are blocking our own energy? That we're the ones putting the stones and the branches inside of our riverbank because we're scared to flow. We're
Mm.
scared to connect with the world. And as I'm going into the metaphor even further, I'm seeing how the river sometimes connects with the ocean or the sea. So, sometimes we're bound to get lost into a vast space. Confirmation bark. Sometimes we're meant to get lost into the larger whole, into communities. But that doesn't mean that
Yes.
we have given up or that we have let go of our authenticity. It's actually the courage for us that we've expressed that courage to love and to flow that has connected us to the unity that exists. But if we're separated, it's no wonder that we feel depressed, we feel anxious, we feel fearful. We're not living the way that we're meant to live. We're not living in an open flow. And sometimes it's not about just protecting our authenticity, it's also about channeling that authenticity into our larger body, which is society.
Yeah, because we're not living in caves by ourselves alone. It's
I
just
mean, we
not.
can, but
Right.
we
We
shouldn't.
could, sure, but that's really not the realistic reality for 99.999% of the world, right? And so some of the signs are, if you're hysterical, it is historical, meaning the hysteria is not in this moment, it is from something in our past that we have not healed from, that we have not cultivated kindness to self from, that we've not released that tension, that burden, that anxiety, that emotion, accepting of that feeling, of that experience. If our breath is short, if we cannot really take a full deep breath, those are all signs that we are in a place of not finding acceptance of where we are right now, which can lead to us really creating more of that friction, which is the opposite of what we are trying to do with this type of work.
Are there any habits that we can use as tools that we can practice daily that they don't need to be a daily occurrence, but because we have that list of those habits, then we can pick, oh, today I'm feeling like maybe I'm going to do a bit of doodling and then I'm going to release some of that tension. That's still a type of movement. It's not your whole body that's moving, but you're still moving some of the thinking energy here to the hands, to an outer space, and you're releasing through that process. It could also be playing with your dog. That's another type of movement that isn't focused entirely on you, but it's allowing you to move and to allow for that spontaneity to clear the air.
I'm so glad you asked this question because I'm such a firm believer in practical, tactical ways to regulate in real time. Sure, I could teach an hour and a half long workshop to help you really go deep into that experience. But we are all busy humans living our real full lives. And so there are so many things that we can be doing. I love that we brought up, shout out to my little dog who made a little feature on this live. Animals are such powerful somatic teachers. They shake off when something anxious happens. If you've ever watched a National Geographic, you can see them shaking off that anxiety or that expression. Fun fact also, dogs sneeze to show that they're being playful. So they use their body to express. Not to totally digress, but I think animals are such powerful somatic guides in a way. But some of the practical tools, so something that's been really important to me in my work is building frameworks that support people more regularly, a way and a state that you can actively take 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, however long you need. So I've built this framework called the reset framework. And really what it is it's a step-by-step process that helps you find ways that intuitively regulate you. So I'll kind of just break down the steps in a second to explain. So reset R is reclaiming the moment. That is one of the most challenging parts. It's saying, okay, outside noise. Okay, mute my phone. Okay, let me just be here in this experience. I am here. And then E is engaging breath. So really those two go together. Taking a nice, taking a couple breaths, intentional, diaphragmatic, really feeling in your chest, feeling in your belly. There's so many different breathwork practices, really uncovering just intentional time for engaging with your breath. And after you've done like a couple of breaths and you're saying like, I'm here, I'm in this moment, then we move to the movement, which is S, stretching and shaking, where I always intuitively start with my neck. My neck is always so tight. I roll my neck. The neck is the bridge between the mind and the body. So that's a powerful place to really see where your tension is. So in that stretch and then move into a shake, I shake my whole body out and really give myself some space for intuitive movement. Where in my body do I feel tension? Maybe I roll out my ankle. Maybe I wiggle my nose. Maybe I just move one finger. Whatever that movement is, as you said, I allow movement and stretching and shaking. So after I've gone through reclaiming, engaging with my breath, I move and stretch and shake, then my body is open. So I move into E, which is embodiment. And in the embodiment practice, that's where I give myself a moment to look within. I close my eyes, I lower my gaze, and I check in with myself. What do I need right now that supports me here? Maybe it's a sip of water. Maybe it's playing with my dog. Maybe it's putting on a song and dancing or calling a friend or asking for a hug. But I'm checking in and embodying what do I need right here, right now. Not what's going to happen in the future, not what happened in the past, but right here in this embodied moment. After I do that, maybe I go back to breath and stretch and shake. And when I feel complete, I move into the last step, which is T. And that's transitioning with gratitude. So I find a glimmer, something that brings me joy, something that reminds me of gratitude. It can be something as simple as I am breathing. Thank you, breath. Thank you, heartbeat. Doesn't have to be anything grand, but it can be. And then I close out and really give myself that space. And again, it could be 1 minute, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, but it's a really great step-by-step process to help you really ground yourself into the present moment.
Thank you for sharing that reset process because it sounds relatively simple as a practice that anyone can do and you can do it daily. And the beauty of it is that the more you show up for it, the more your own body is going to tell you what you need, and the more skilled you're going to become at listening to your intuition, which is how your body communicates with you. I've become quite I'm used to it now, but I would almost receive images from my body. Like I would see broccoli. I'm like, oh, okay, my body needs broccoli. So my body's communicating with me using the clairaudience and clairvoyance to show me or to tell me what I need to consume so that I don't need to test my blood levels or, these things that science has given us as tools. There are tools within us that can support us in ways that I think we've forgotten how to use as generationally speaking, for one reason or another. We've been moved to the minds, we've been moved to the programming, we've been moved to believe a certain story about who we are, what we're capable of, and we're breaking free from that script. And I think that building these frameworks, like the reset process, allow us to just be present. And one powerful reframe, I would say, because one of the things you mentioned is, do I need a hug right now? Anything that you think you need, when it's authentic, when it's natural, you can give to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Give yourself a hug right now, right? Yes, so important, Stella. I think like so much beauty in what you shared too of this is ancient teaching and we're just modernizing it. This is all things that people back in many moons ago, before they had TikTok and Instagram and all these platforms to distract us in being in the mind. It's really connecting to the now. And as you've been more in your intuitive aspects of yourself, your body, your mind will begin to communicate to you in more ways than you can imagine. So that's what this work also is about. It's the reclamation of your intuition, of knowing what you need, and no one else can know that for you but you. So that's where your personal accountability and responsibility comes into your healing process.
Sometimes I feel like I'm just the messenger, that the work is being done from heart, body, mind working together, my soul, my intuition. They're just informing me what's happening, and then I'm tasked with informing the world. And so it's
Mm,
not a question of who am I anymore, but it's rather, well, this is who I am. This is what I'm bringing. How can we work together? How can we co-create something? And it's taken a while for me to understand that I'm working with myself in a completely different way, but it's exciting because I think many more people are activating their intuitive abilities and learning how they can communicate with themselves before they even begin to communicate that with the world. But once again, I do want to highlight this isn't about you doing these teachings, these frameworks, these practices, showing up for them, and then by the end you realize, oh, now I need to buy a coffee from that branch. Now I need to go and buy a new top. Now I need to get something. I need No, it's about befriending that present moment and yourself in the present moment, and seeing how you can support yourself without needing anything outside. On top of that, it's the bonus. But the gift starts and ends with you. And if you can honor and
mhm.
treasure that gift, everything else that you receive will be a mirror of your own understanding as to the kind of gift that you are.
Totally. And
And
I
it's
think
based.
there's something, yeah. And I think like the relational aspect, I think is just such an important part of that. Like, as an example, I did the reset practice. I don't know, maybe it was earlier this morning, as I was preparing, before I jumped on this podcast, I put on a song and I wiggled out and shook and danced and allowed myself to be grounded. And something that came through for me was, oh, I have to reach out to one of my college friends and say hello. And intuitively, she texted me and said hello to me. So when you are connecting, it really goes into like universal consciousness as well. When you can really turn that on and tap it in, it is a signal that you are open to receive all of the beautiful messages and support from universal consciousness and energy as well.
I do have one more question to you that kind of relates to the larger picture of somatic healing and how we connect to society and what effect does it have on the world. But I am curious, how much of the chakras that we have are part of this journey? How much can people use
Mm.
their chakras as the gateway for accessing or receiving even some of that wisdom? Because I do some of the movements that I do at the end of a long day, or when I feel like the energy is weird, I just cleanse the energetic centers in the body, the seven chakras, which are the starting point. There are other chakras as well, but these are the seven centers. And so if you are a speaker, if you're tasked with speaking, clearing, making the habit to clear out your throat chakra and boost it, that should be a priority. If you are a leader, the solar plexus. If you are channeling these ideas, storyteller, you have different chakras that require your attention. But how much of it is now being part of the somatic teachings worldwide, or is this something that's relatively new in terms of the way that somatic healing is being taught, even though we know that the chakras and the energy teachings, they're as ancient as we are?
Yeah, I think it's such a profound and important question to ask. My coaching container is based on the chakras. I firmly believe that we can start from the lower chakras and move ourselves all the way up. And there is a lot of clearing in some of those lower root chakras that are really foundational to our openness to healing. So, regularly, somatic practitioners that I speak to, this is conversations that we are talking about. It's something that is important. But really, I think more at the core, it's meeting someone where they're at. If someone is not super spiritual and into chakras and into those expressions, maybe that's not the approach that I would take in supporting them. So I really think it is all about that co-creation conversation, but energetically, yes, if this is something that is a part of your world, there is so much alignment. All the different sounds that each chakra makes, I speak those with my clients. We move through that energetically with our throat. There's different expressions of movement that relate to different openings of the chakras. So it definitely is a practice that can be combined to help you see the openness or the lack thereof, maybe some of that closedness. That's something that will continue to evolve, right? They're not always open or always closed. This is not a black and white experience, but really a living in the gray. So it's something that can continue to evolve as we are evolving.
I think the somatic practice or the somatic lifestyle is the practice of unblocking your flow, whether that's energetic flow, emotional flow, mental flow. Sometimes you might be overthinking the same ideas or the same limiting beliefs because it's time for you to address them so you can unblock that flow. If you're scared, that anxiety is going to bubble up to the surface. And instead of listening to the song Anxiety, to name an example right now, because it's quite trendy, why are you feeling anxious? Come back to the body, come back to the self. Why is your energy attached to something outside of you that screams anxiety versus addressing that you are a frequency to that? And it's a great song. I mean, you can dance to it, but ultimately, what your mind is hearing, what you're experiencing, you're inviting more of is that idea of the anxiety. So you're entertaining the idea of the anxiety. Maybe
Yeah.
this is a prompt for you to create something.
I love that you also brought up the layers. Like as you were describing, these are all the layers. And so that's maybe where some somatic work can feel overwhelming. Oh my gosh, it's my feelings, it's my emotions, it's my mindset, it's my sensations in body. So it is important to know that this is a layered journey process. And so we are here as practitioners to help support you all in that unpacking process. You don't have to do it alone. And so the sensations, I always would say, is such a great start because feelings and emotions are something that you think you are thinking a feeling or thinking an emotion, but allowing yourself to start with sensation is a great place to begin that process.
But as we're thinking about somatic healing, I do want to ask you this final question. How can somatic exercises, movement, healing approaches help us with life on earth? What's the most
Hmm.
practical use of this so that it doesn't become just this luxury that only a few can afford because it's in a very fancy expensive studio somewhere, or because they have the extra time to play that class or join a subscription model with some teacher who's super experienced, but rather how can that somatic lifestyle be part of education, part of the workplaces, part of society outside when we go into these shared spaces to exist outside of the establishments where we can just meet people and network with them without being restricted by the level of the mind where we are stuck just here. How can we practically move all of this into everyday life?
Yeah, it's just such an important question. I'm so glad you asked this question. This is a lifelong journey. This is something that we can be educating where we are on our path. So I'm very passionate about bringing this to corporate spaces to create grounding techniques to support you in the corporate environment, before performance reviews where you have those constructive criticism moments, or maybe you have to deliver feedback that's uncomfortable. How can we just take some intentional breath? How can we shake out our body to shake off that top level anxiety? It doesn't have to be an entire class. It can be 30 seconds, 1 minute. So there are those ways that we can learn intuitively and create practice around that in our corporate life. Or thinking about early childhood, right? If you're a mother or a father, when your kid has a big emotion, sitting and just holding them and breathing with them and reminding them to breathe. Those are little subtle ways to start that process and that experience, to model that. I think there's so much modeling for light workers, for people that are here on earth in this way to support the community of the world that we're living in. I'm also right now really experimenting with supporting seniors. Senior living and caregivers are so needing this support and space. Isolation is so critical at that later stage in life. And caregivers are really feeling that burnout and that anxiety. So, taking ways that we can create environments where you can connect back to maybe when your body was in a different state, when you were 30 versus 80 years old, or if you're a caregiver and your nervous system is so shot because you're so focused on other people. So I really think, Stella, that at every stage of our life, we can create ways to implement practical, tactical, grounded tools. It doesn't have to be super ethereal and spiritual, although it can. And that's the beauty of this all, is it's meeting you where you are, wherever you are in your journey, knowing that there are people like me who can really meet you where you're at. There's so many of us here that are really looking to support all of you at all places and stages of your life.
You mentioned this one word a couple of times, and it only clicked that I've been kind of focusing on, moving from the mind to the feeling body, which is, moving a little bit one layer deeper inside of us to release that tension using the emotional body and even the spiritual body, which is where we tap into the energy levels and the chakras. But actually, the process of grounding is where we move the energy from the mind to the body and we do
Yes.
something about it. And so I think this is where the gym can help us the most. Where going out for a run can help us a lot because we're doing something with our bodies and we're not in the minds. We can be, I mean, we can choose to continue to overthink while we're like frantically running or using the equipment and moving around. But most of the time, people start exercising because they want to escape their mind. They want to shift from the mental body to the physical body. I think when we start to develop certain conditions, health conditions, and we start to reevaluate our life, prioritize our well being, we start to move from the mental body to both the physical body and the emotional because we realize, oh, there are certain emotions that are stuck inside my tissues, and I need to not only move my physical body, I need to move some of my beliefs that have been supporting me getting attached to these heavy emotions that have been corroding my tissues from within,
Yeah, I
which is
think
what then makes the space for that spiritual self to come through.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because there's such a deep level of two words that came through for me: choice. You have the active choice to choose if you want to be in the mind and looping while you're pumping iron or running. You have the active choice. No one is choosing your experience in life besides you. And the other really profound word when you were talking about emotions is acceptance. We are not saying that we are trying to shove down, ignore, discredit shame, guilt, anxiety, sadness, depression. But when we can accept that that's where we are, then we can open ourselves to moving through that. But we have to take a place where we're in that place of acceptance first, so that we acknowledge the experience of ourselves, where we are right here and right now. Without that acceptance, and we're just bypassing and we're doing the opposite of what we're really intentional trying to create in that grounding, trust, and safety for self.
Absolutely. And two people might have two completely different reactions to the same emotion, whether it's
And they
anxiety,
will.
whether it's grief. Sometimes it might be the same. When you go to anonymous alcoholics and people are sharing their stories, they're experiencing the same symptoms. They're experiencing the same, maybe they have similarities in the way that their life occurred that brought them to this place of now acceptance and healing. But still, we carry that multitude of modalities within us, and so one day we might be react, or after one heartbreak we might react in a particular way, after another heartbreak we might react in a completely opposite way and even think to ourselves, I didn't know that I was capable of this, or I don't even know who I am anymore. And in the process, we should be expanding our understanding of who we are and befriending all that we are, all that wants to come to the
Yes.
surface.
The humanness of us, the human part of us, the humanity of the way that we show up for ourselves in the world is always an involvement. I think it's really profound to know. I go back to that black and white thinking. It's the same thing. As we are living more life lives through us. And we have the power to show up differently, to react differently, or to not react in a way that we have done before. So allowing ourselves to have the openness and space to see the way that we react change, to see the way that someone else reacts, not with judgment, but just from appreciation for their vulnerability, for their honesty, for them showing up in that way. And that's how we create a more connected world within ourselves and with others.
I'm being brought to the metaphor that I use with the river because it's just expanded as you were talking about. Because if you think about your belief system as the framework for how you exist, how much you share, and how you share, how you connect, it's like you have one particular linear path that's allowing for you to flow. So when you unblock the flow, that's fantastic. You're flowing, you're actively moving forward. But what if your belief system was still limiting? What if your whole life you've thought
Mm.
the only way I can share my gifts is by being a writer, let's say, and I need to write books or I need to write for a newspaper. But then you realize, actually, I can be a writer that writes books, but I can also use my voice to tell the story using songs. I can also make a video. So now your river is not just one flow, but it's multiple flows.
Little streams
Yeah,
coming down.
little streams.
Yeah.
And this is
Yep.
the multidimensional experience that we get to reach during our lifetime because it doesn't relate just to the 3D and how we operate here. That stream also goes upwards to the
Mm.
spiritual expression of who we are. And it's a two-way, just the way that our body can communicate with us and quite literally send you like images of what it needs you to feed it. You can receive those images from your spiritual self when you reach that level of openness. I don't even think this is about mastery. It's about unblocking the flow and making yourself available to receive. So,
Yes. Beautiful. And your ancestors, your guides, your spirit,
yeah.
I mean, whatever you believe in, when you are open, it's a beautiful way of just knowing that there's so much more that can come through
Mhm.
and there's an untapped potential.
Always, always. We're limitless beings, so always. Erica, thank you for joining me. Thank you for holding space for these breakthroughs, these intuitive breakthroughs to come through the surface, through the surface, break through the surface, and
Mm.
join our conversation. It was fantastic to unblock some of the blockages, the invisible blockages. I feel more open. There's this
Oh,
sense of openness, and I'm sure anyone that's joining, anyone that's listening to this, they're going to have their own conclusions about the way that they live. And as you mentioned, we have the choice, and that choice is called free will. Even if you're
mhm.
under the illusion that you don't have a choice, you always do. That's the illusion. Breaking free from the illusion, breaking through the illusion.
Yes, using our body as a tool and a vessel to help guide us and get us
As
there
the
for sure.
shield as well, when people try to project these limitations, it's like, no.
Yes, no, and I bless you and release and thank you so much for showing me where I need to hold those boundaries or where it's part of my work as well to honor that experience of myself. So thank you, Stella, for allowing this space for me to share. It's such an important part of my life to be able to communicate and create a space where people can be curious about the way they choose to live. So it's such a joy to be with you. I'm so grateful.
It was a joy and honor to have you on Big Souls, Big Ideas, Erica. And I know what I'm going to be doing after this episode. I'm going to be dancing and I'm going to be jumping, just like I referenced earlier in the episodes. Uh, Let us know in the comments, what are you doing after this episode? How are you moving? This
Put on your
is,
favorite song and dance it out.
yes. Yeah. And share this with somebody. You don't need to share the episode, just share the wisdom, share an insight, invite someone to join you in this movement. Let this be your act of, revolution, of courage, of expression. Let this be your act of expression.
I love that.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for co-creating with me, Erica. Appreciate you and the work that you do.